Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's showcase on sport for violence prevention and bridge building, organized by Generations for Peace USA. My name is Lindsay McLean, and I'm the Executive Director of Generations for Peace USA. I'm joined by several other colleagues from GFP USA and also GFP Global. As co-hosts, we have Safia Ibn Garba, who's the Generations for Peace Senior Director of Global Programs and Learning, and she'll be presenting to us on our global work. From Generations for Peace USA, we have Angela Travers, who is our Associate Director of Development, and she'll be monitoring our chat and facilitating a Q&A session a bit later. We also have two colleagues supporting on the back end, Shahid Al-Hamid and Ashraf Faraj, both from our Global Programs team. Next slide, please. We are recording this session. This is a little bit of housekeeping. We're recording this session. There is a live transcript option available, which provides captions. If you have an up-to-date Zoom, you just click the CC button on your screen. Please keep an eye on the chat. We'll be communicating with you there throughout the showcase. Please also introduce yourself in the chat if you haven't already done so, and share your comments and questions there throughout the showcase. We'll be taking some time towards the end to respond. I'll now hand over to Safia, who's going to take us through the agenda and provide a brief overview of our global model. Over to you, Safia.
Thank you, Lindsay, and welcome, everyone. It's amazing to have you here. I'm Safia, as Lindsay mentioned, and here to take us through the agenda and a few of the slides from our presentation today to you. We're going to take a look at Generations for Peace globally. Just a little snapshot from who we are as an organization on a global level. And then we're going to home into the USA, GFP USA landscape. And then we're going to do a little bit of overview of GFP USA's plans. So the plans for the future and how you can get involved. We'll have some space for question and answers, and then we'll close up with an evaluation. That is mostly what we're going to do in our session today. Next slide, please. So who is Generations for Peace? Now, we are a global peace-building organization, and we're headquartered in Amman, Jordan. Jordan, a country with the rich heritage, rich cultural heritage, and heritage of peace, providing succor and refuge to many in the region. Jordan is actually a model of peace in a very troubled part of the world, just like many parts of the world are. But being able to stand and being a model of peace and encouraging that both locally within Jordan and internationally. We have very strong ties to the USA, as you can imagine, and Generations for Peace is headquartered in Amman, Jordan. Now, we are a volunteer movement. We have over 20,000 volunteers that work with us across 52 countries, including the United States. We've had 16 years of experience, so it's been a while, and a proven track record of working in very diverse and difficult complex contexts around the world. So you will find that we have a rich diversity of experience in terms of context and culture and conflict context across the world. And this is because we, again, being a volunteer movement, are led and directed by what volunteers and members of the communities themselves think are the issues that they want to address in their communities. We're the #1 social good organization in the Middle East, as rated by socialgood.org, and the #3 peacebuilding SGO in the world. We are also the only peace through sport organization that's recognized by the International Olympic Committee, and we're quite proud of this. Next slide. So what's our mission? Well, we want to empower youth and youth leaders so they can lead and cascade change in their communities. And we speak of sustainable change that that is led by the community and maintained and sustained by the community and the actions of the members of the community. And we do that through world-class free education in conflict transformation and the use of sport, arts, advocacy, dialogue, empowerment, and media for peace programming. Our vision is to see sustainable peace and actively tolerant communities through responsible citizenship. And this, I believe, is what we all want to see in our world today. Our drivers of change include innovation, quality, impact, and sustainability. That means that this is the way we go about how we want to see that change happen and how we encourage our youth and leaders of youth to lead that sustainable change in their communities. Next slide. How do we do this? Now, we do this through what we call tools or vehicles for peace building. We have 6 of them. That's sport, arts, advocacy, dialogue, empowerment, and media. And through all these tools, which are entry points into communities, we work through them to help our volunteers and those in the communities come together and find a safe space across their differences and across conflict divides to engage and gain new perspectives of one another, understanding, and to mainly listen to each other and kind of see where, okay, we may not agree on this, but this is something that we could possibly learn more about. One of our most popular tools, in fact, most popular, is the Sport for Peace tool. Now, in the Sport for Peace tool, we use sport-based games and drills and activities to harness the energy and the power of team dynamics and the joint effort to work towards achieving a goal. And the goal may be something as small as kicking a ball from point A to point B, which is transformed in the course of the activities into real-life experiences and how we can go from point A to point B in issues of conflict. And so Sport for Peace, our most popular tool, and obviously I think it's obvious why it is our most popular tool, because everyone kind of keys into sport in one way or the other. This is a very, very important tool that we've been using in the United States, in our programming in the United States, to bring together youth from different sides of conflict divides. Next slide. And so let's take a look at one example. And this is an example from Jordan. Okay. And this is a program that is a Sport for Peace, Life Skills and Social Cohesion in Jordan that was supported by UNICEF, Laureus Sport for Good Foundation, and the UK Aid. Now, this is within a context of Jordan, and I speak a little bit about Jordan here to say that we're a population of about 10 to 11 million. And of those, actually, Jordan has the second largest refugee per capita population in the world. That shows you a little bit about Jordan's history and reputation for being a succor and a refuge. And within this space, you have about official numbers, according to UNHCR, about 800,000 of those are refugees. The majority of them are Syrian and other nationalities as well. Now, in this context, you find that there is sometimes tension, there is sometimes, some intolerance amongst host communities and refugee communities. And this could be, refugee communities working in different governorates or areas of Jordan. Now, this particular program was implemented in 4 areas in Jordan, and those that were targeted were children age 5 to 17 with that gender representation, and they included Syrian and Jordanian children. And if you take a look at the slide, what you will see there are the changes and indicators, the things that we measured throughout the program using Sport for Peace, obviously, for this program, and then a few photos from there. And you can see here that some key results are like the number of beneficiaries, those who are directly involved in activities, who expressed increased self-confidence to participate in the community. So when you're in a community where you may not have felt that you belong, but through these kinds of activities, you found out and you felt from the beginning up to the end of the program, you felt that I feel more confident to participate in things happening in the communities. Another example to note is those who reported increased access to services in public schools and youth centers, and that was a 35% increase. So that changed because not only did they feel more confident but about getting involved in the community, but found that they had more access, and those facilities were available to them in public schools. And this is just a snapshot. We have obviously a lot of programs. We've mentioned 52 countries with different levels of activity, but we speak of different contexts where the conflict issues that are decided by those within the communities. They are the ones who say, well, this is what we want to work on. These are the people who we can access. These are all the dimensions, whether gender-wise, economic, socioeconomic, whatever the issues are. And together we work with them, we train and mentor and walk the journey with them so that they can lead the change that they want to see. And we want to make sure that as we're doing that, there is robust monitoring and evaluation. We're checking if what it is that they wanted to see change is actually happening. And we're also learning as we go along, adapting and addressing the feedback that we're receiving to see change happen. There are many other examples, but I'm going to hand over to Lindsay to speak a bit more about the USA. Over to you, Lindsay.
Thank you so much, Sophia, and thank you for the round of applause from the participants. Again, my name is Lindsay, and I'm the Executive Director of Generations for Peace USA. So Sophia has given us an overview of Generations for Peace's global work with this example from Jordan, where the global headquarters are based. And now I'm going to take you through our work in the United States and tell you more about our US work. So Generations for Peace USA is an independent 501c3 nonprofit. We were founded by Generations for Peace Global in 2012. We were mainly only doing advocacy work with the UN in New York up until about 2016. And that's when we started scoping for US programs because we were receiving a lot of interest from folks in the US that we were interacting with to bring this global work to US communities. We hired our first US-based staff member, myself, in 2019 and launched US programs that same year. And we're now a small-scaled team of staff, board members, and ambassadors from across the United States. But we share this commitment to adapting and applying GFP's global model to bridge divides, strengthen communities, and build peace in the USA. Next, we're going to go into why we exist. While levels of peacefulness are down in this country, optimism and hope among Americans to change the status quo is up. And that's massively encouraging to us because it creates this historic opportunity to harness all of that energy for change, to address root causes of division, and to break these seemingly never-ending cycles of violence that we're trapped in. And we began Generations for Peace USA because of this demand that we received from groups and individuals in America for new and innovative ways to overcome divides and to work together on conflict issues affecting individuals and communities. Again, we're committed to adapting GFP's global model, but we want to make sure that it's relevant and it resonates with community needs and strengths in the US. And we work in sustainable partnerships with communities to create meaningful changes. Our purpose or our mission in the US, it differs a little bit from the global mission because our mission in the US is tailored to this particular context. And our mission is to engage children, youth, and adults in learning, in dialogue, and in actions that transform their communities into places of safety and belonging for all. What do we mean by these three areas of learning, dialogue, and action? With learning, our activities support experiential learning by doing, and we give people experiences of demonstrating new skills and capacities through real life experiences and practice. With dialogue, our activities provide brave spaces. So not just safe spaces, but brave spaces for honest exchange, where you can develop a better understanding of yourself and others. And with action, we provide opportunities for community members to take action together across divides, working towards shared goals and futures. We have aligned our program areas around three thematic priorities. The next slide, please. So our three thematic priorities, are one, civic engagement and youth leadership, where we emphasize strengthening young people's capacities and confidence to address issues that they're most passionate about changing. Two, under bridge building, we bring people together across identity-based divides, whatever they may be, to listen to and understand each other better, but also to go beyond just listening and talking and to taking action together on issues of shared concern that are affecting safety and belonging. And third, under violence prevention, we aim to work as upstream as possible in conflict dynamics, strengthening individual and collective protective factors, and addressing root causes of violence. We increasingly hope to work on issues of structural and cultural violence, acknowledging that there are very real systems of oppression in the United States that are exacerbating things like marginalization, discrimination, violence, and injustice in communities. And until we really change these systems, we can't prevent violence in a sustainable way and enjoy a sustainable peace. So I'd like to pause for just a moment. Hope you all are still with us and ask for some audience participation. So we're going to launch a quick little poll here to better understand which of these thematic priorities resonate most with the context where you live and work. So our question to you is, which of our thematic priorities are most relevant to the needs of the communities you serve? And the choices are civic engagement and youth leadership, bridge building, and violence prevention. Great, I see a lot of results are coming in. We'll take maybe another 30 to 45 seconds. Just the quickness of your response right now is giving me a lot of confidence for how our discussion is going to go later. Perfect. We are at 84% participation, which is wonderful. I think we can go ahead and close it there, Ashraf. And let us share the results. So this is really interesting. I wasn't sure what to expect, but we have it evenly split across all three of our thematic areas, which maybe means that we're on the right track and what we're saying here is resonating, that we're right on the money in terms of the priorities in the US for peace building. All right, so once we get to the discussion in a few minutes, I would love to hear some more comments on this and the ways in which you think that these thematic priorities could be applied in the communities where you work. All right, I'm gonna get this screen closed out. All right, now I'd love to share with you some of our past programs. So you may be wondering, what have you done in the US and how have you used sport? So far we've implemented 3 programs in Greater Grand Crossing in Chicago and also in Champaign in Illinois in partnership with the Laureate Sport for Good Foundation, the Gary Comer Youth Center on the Comer Education Campus, the New American Welcome Center at the University YMCA, and Generation Amazing. And these programs have used sport-based games to engage middle and high school youth to strengthen youth leadership, prevent violence, and build bridges. Some of our key activities have included trainings for partner staff and for high school youth themselves on Sport for Peace. We've also held weekly sport and art sessions with young people. We've helped support youth-led activities. That's where that experiential learning piece comes in, where youth have organized activities in their communities for other youth. And we've also organized both domestic and international exchanges. We've had folks from the Gary Comer Youth Center go to Amman, and we've also sent some Jordanian youth and young adults to Chicago to interact with folks. So I would love to turn now to a program video. This is a video we put out from our Youth Interacts program that was in Chicago and Champaign. It's about 5 minutes long, but I feel like it gives a really good visual representation of how we've used sport to both build bridges and prevent violence among young people in Illinois. So let's watch it now and then continue on with the conversation.
EFP has affected me in a good way because it made me know how to interact with people that's from a different background from me. It made me look at it like some people may not think the same stuff I think, and that's okay. So it made me realize that they came from a different background. It's okay that they came from a different background because at the end of the day, we still both human.
What makes our Chicago program this year special is its unique component of mixing different identity groups from both Chicago and Urbana-Champaign in Illinois to reduce existing community tensions and foster trust, empathy, and acceptance of diversity among and between Black and immigrant or refugee youth through sports. The program is in partnership with Gary Comer Youth Center and New American Welcome Center at the University YMCA. And that's why it's titled Youth Interacts, which stands for Youth Inter and Intergroup Action Against Community Tensions Through Sports.
Our main goal is to bring kids from different backgrounds, races, and religion. Through being together, we can learn to build a better future and learning how to live with one another in peace and love.
That's good. A lot of youth, especially here, don't really see what's outside of Chicago. Being able to see and have a different perspective and see, okay, I can connect with this person. They may not look like me, they may not live in the same environment as me, but we still can make a connection.
We always have been doing different events apart, and this program allows us to bring everyone together.
We brought both groups together to have a session.
So you need to select a group leader first. Go on.
Identify what are some good traits in a leader and some bad traits in a leader. And then we did relay stations.
Get that.
Where each team had to do a different station and complete a task. And then we also did the soccer game. And also with lunch, just fellowshipping and getting to connect.
I met this girl because we both did sports in the winter and the spring. So we talked about that and we were like, yeah, the weather was horrible this season. And we talked about how we're both going to do track next year and how we might see each other.
Through the games, we can teach them how to organize and work in teams. They need to learn that their participation has an impact. I think they enjoy it. I also play a little bit.
I was always told that you need people. You can't do things by yourself. You always need some type of support system. So you getting to know more people is you gaining more knowledge.
Girls, their food was just sitting there on the table. I walked by and I asked, why aren't you guys eating? And they just looked at me and they said, we'll eat it later. One of the participants who became friends with them told me that they can't eat meat because of their religion. Seeing these younger kids do that for each other where I think someone else spoke out for them, I think that was really great.
Someone that I got to talk to a lot was Benjamin and Heidi, and we sort of became like more than acquaintances.
Buddies.
Yeah, we became more like buddies now. Now, if I see him somewhere, I would be like, oh my gosh, it's Benjamin. But before, I wouldn't have never known.
Yes, I grew. I'm not much of a people person. This is an experience for me. I've opened up a little bit more with talking to people and being around people and basically being out of my bubble, you know. So it was good. It's nice.
Welcome back, everyone. I am so happy that we didn't have technical difficulties with that and we were able to show the video. I want to share with you just a couple of photos and testimonials from our sport-based work in Chicago and Champaign. This first one is from that exchange program that you just saw the video about between youth in Chicago and in Champaign, with a quote from one of our partners. The second photo is during our first Sport for Peace training back in 2019 at the Gary Comer Youth Center with their staff. We're practicing some of the exercises. And then the quote here is from Ricky, one of our first Chicago volunteers. And then this last photo is from Champaign during a community back to school event that was organized with our partners at the New American Welcome Center. And the quote here is from one of the Chicago youth participants about what the program and being part of the program meant to them. All right, so then the last thing that I would like to do before we start looking towards the future and talking about what's next is to just share on the next slide about our results. So in our programs, we seek impact in 4 main areas. 1 is peace, safety, and inclusion. 2, civic responsibility. 3, trust and understanding of others. And 4, social emotional learning and leadership skills. And these are results that we came up with based off of an analysis of the issues and also conversations with partners, with community members, and with board members and ambassadors. And we're measuring results from all of our US programs in these 4 areas through surveys, focus groups, and other participatory forms of monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Here are just a few of the results I'd like to highlight for you. We also have on our website, which we'll share a link to at the end, pages for all of our past programs that have a lot more detail, photos, testimonials, and more data. So in terms of statistics, we saw a 33% increase in abilities of youth to respond nonviolently to conflict, which we know conflict is normal and natural, it's a part of life, but what we're really looking at is how we can have nonviolent responses to conflict in our everyday life. We also saw a 40% increase in both interracial community engagement and willingness to interact with people of other races. So racial divides are one of the identity-based divides that we're looking to address through our programming. And lastly, we saw a 37% increase in values of youth leadership. So now we would like to turn for just a couple minutes and share with you our future plans, what's next, and how we would love for you all to get involved. So first of all, we're hiring. We are hiring a program manager to help us grow and expand our US programming. Preferably, this role will be based in Chicago, but we're also open to DC or Nashville. You can find more details, including a link to the application and a much more detailed role description on our website, which the link is going to be dropped in the chat, I believe, and there's also a QR code here that you can scan. This role is perfect for someone who has at least 4 years of experience in program management, working in US communities. If you have a history of working on sport-based youth development, that's also a huge bonus. And the position is open until filled, but we are asking folks to please apply by close of business tomorrow, Friday, August 25th, for priority consideration. We've already started interviewing and we're going to continue to interview and hope to get this role filled as soon as possible. Next, programmatically, we are really excited to be launching a virtual Sport for Peace community of practice for youth sport organizations in Illinois and in DC this fall. This is going to be an opportunity for staff of youth sport organizations to receive some virtual capacity strengthening on Sport for Peace principles and practices. So maybe they already are doing a lot of sport-based youth development work, but they'd like to know how to incorporate in more peace building work, how to better prevent violence and be conflict sensitive in their work. And we're going to be doing some training with them and some mentorship, and then also supporting folks to integrate some of this work into their ongoing activities and their organizations. We're planning for a kickoff webinar in November, so please stay tuned for more information and an invitation to join the community of practice. It will be at no cost other than just your time commitment. And we'll be announcing more details on our social media, also on our mailing list. So if you've signed up for those things and follow us, then you'll be sure to receive that information. Next, this is probably our biggest ask from today's conversation, is we are seeking new partners. We really want to co-create programs with you all in communities across Illinois in the coming months. So to build off of this community of practice and start doing some more programmatic work with all of you. If you're interested in what we've shared today, if you'd like to discuss this further with us one-on-one and explore possibilities and co-create things together, we've created a really simple interest form. The link will be in the chat. You also can use this QR code. We're going to keep this interest form open indefinitely because we're always looking for new partners, but we do ask if you're on this call and you're interested to please fill it out by September 8th, because we're going to be moving forward with the first folks that fill it out throughout the month of September into October, trying to get things in place for 2024, which is quickly upon us. You may be asking what type of partner we're looking for. We do have a couple of ideas here, but we'd love to hear from everyone. Let's see what we can create together. First, before we get to the discussion, we are looking for folks that align with our mission and values, that we complement one another's strengths, and we each are bringing some unique value add. We're looking for partners who are respected and credible in the communities they serve and who can mobilize relevant community members. We're looking for partners who desire mutually beneficial and shared outcomes and are willing and excited about collaborating with us on program design, implementation, and evaluation. We're looking for organizations that have some human resource capacity, whether it's staff or volunteers or interns, but we can work together to share our human resources to deliver on the agreed actions that we come up with. We're looking for organizations and individuals and groups that have potential to bring and or co-raise funds with us for the implementation. And we're looking for folks who agree to basic safeguarding and protection practices, since we do anticipate that our work is going to be working a lot with vulnerable populations and with children and youth. Our geographic priorities are those who operate in Illinois, Tennessee, and the greater DC area. And while we are open to partnering with informal and formal organizations, our preference is really for registered nonprofits or informal groups who have a fiscal sponsor, because if we are successful in raising funds together, oftentimes donors require that you have a nonprofit status in order to receive funding. So I'm going to hand over now to Angela, who is going to facilitate a conversation with us, and then we will wrap up. So thank you all so much. Over to Angela.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Sophia and Lindsay, for your sessions. We just wanted to start up on the screen. You'll see a couple of questions. I'll also put them in the chat box to sort of start the conversation. What are the violence prevention and bridge building needs in communities where you work, and how might GFP USA partner with you on addressing these issues? And then any other questions you might have for us. We have already gotten a couple of questions. So Lindsay, I'm going to direct this first one to you. Do you have a sense of how much funds organizations would be able to bring or raise? This is from Laura at Keene.
Sure, thank you so much, Laura. I don't want to put a figure on it because it's so dependent on what we create together. But to give you an example, for our Chicago partnership, not our Chicago, our DC partnership that we're about to launch, we are each providing cost share in the form of staffing, and we're doing activities virtually. We're doing our training activities virtually. And then that particular organization has some funding for mini grants to give to the partners to integrate what they're learning in their work. So that's a very low budget program. If we're going to be doing in-person activities with young people, the budget is higher. We know in Chicago, our experience is that it's very common to give young people stipends for participating. Sometimes organizations, they need to hire somebody, so we're looking to raise staff costs. So it just depends. I think I see some other questions about the size of organizations. No organization is too big or too small. We would love to hear from you if you have a passion for this type of work and an alignment with what we're sharing here. And I'm very confident that we can figure something out that's going to work for both organizations and be realistic.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. And I have another question for you, so don't go away just yet.
Okay, I'm here.
Chicago has a major gun violence problem. We use adventure activities in therapeutic manner to address this. We could always use more funding. So.
Yes. I love the adventure activity element. We haven't done that in our work so far. We were in conversations with another organization about that possibility a few years ago. And yes, agree with the funding. We also, just to be clear, we're also fundraising actively, but we would love to kind of combine forces and see how we might be able to go after different funding networks and come up with something that's really attractive to donors.
Okay, I actually have one for Sophia next. How did you use sport in the Jordan program, and what was the context that it was used in?
Thanks, Angela. So we use sport in a way that it's not competitive, okay? We work through different, what we call sport-based games and activities that may bring together youth or the target group. So specifically in Jordan, that brought these children who are from Syrian and Jordanian identities together in games, activities that would make them come together on teams where you have, for example, a team that consists of both Syrians and Jordanians on team A, for example, and another with both Syrian and Jordanians in team B, and they may play together. So if at all there's any level of competition, it's not competition for any prize, but just helping them understand that the values that they can learn as they do it. And we have what we call expressions of change that we hope our activities will bring about. So these are things like building tolerance, fostering cooperation, building acceptance, and working together, and so on and so forth. And using both sport code and the expressions of change that we want to see in a program, they work together in games. It could be as simple as building a tower together, right? And which team builds the highest tower, or something like working together and playing football in an adapted way of playing football. And they use these activities, also life skills are taught through these different games. And I think the key thing to note is that it's not just about playing games, it's also about when after these physical activities, they sit down together and reflect about what they learned, what they experienced, get feedback on the session, but also how they could translate what they have experienced on the field, in the playground, to real life. And that is kind of how we do it. So we worked in youth, in schools and youth centers are all over the kingdom, actually, work together, bringing these different kids from different identities, and through these sport-based games, through these activities, week in, week out, during school, they get a chance to do these activities and actually give them some homework sometimes, right? And they go back, and as time goes on, our programming typically at least lasts for 6 months. So there are about 6 months of these kinds of activities, and they may do some like during summer or not. And they have a time to afterwards, after the activities, kind of let the changes settle in. And then afterwards, we do remeasure the indicators that we measured at the beginning. So in the context of Jordan, depending, of course, on the area, and in this case, it was a lot about social cohesion and building life skills. They go through this period of what we call ongoing activities, in this case, ongoing sport for peace and life skills activities, to promote social cohesion and help them feel more belonging more to the community, and so on, and all the indicators that we shared earlier on. And that's kind of what it looks like on the field, in the ground, in real life. And our hope always is that whatever they learn, they're able to pass it on to indirect beneficiaries as well. Over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sophia. Lindsay, I have a couple more questions for you. What type of partners is GFP USA looking for, and are there any key thematic areas that you're currently seeking?
Thank you so much. So we kind of talked a little bit about our ideal partners when I was sharing about the interest form, but to build off of that further, I have found that the best partnerships that we've had are really built off of this shared passion for the work, and this sense of piloting, like not being afraid to pilot and try new things, and to learn and adapt, and then to make changes and keep going. So we really are trying to get out of this like violent cycle, I'll almost call it, of 1-year projects. It's so difficult in this type of work, but really in so much type of nonprofit work, to have a meaningful change when you're only guaranteed 1 year at a time. And then there's gaps in funding, and there's kind of breakdown in partnerships, and you're not able to build year in and year out. So for GFP, we're Generations for Peace. We have generations of volunteers, kind of as a play off of our name. And in some of our most successful and impactful contexts, like in Northern Nigeria, where Sophia is from, she's going to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but last I heard we were on the 8th or 9th generation of volunteers. Sophia, please, yes, I see unmuting happening. How long, what generation are we on in Northern Nigeria?
We're on the 8th.
The 8th. Okay, great. So to go back to that specific question, what type of partner are we looking for? We're looking for folks that are willing to give it a try and are potentially in it for the long term of building something together that is really impactful and fun and able to kind of highlight the best of both organizations and make some change in communities. And can you ask me the second question again, please?
Yeah, of course. And are there any key thematic areas that we're currently seeking over others?
Not necessarily. I'm reflecting back on our poll, and that was really telling for me. Just, I mean, I appreciate for participants, you can't see who all's on the call. We had at the peak, I think about 40 different organizations, mostly from Chicago, represented on this call, which to me is just a wonderful turnout. And thank you all for your interest and for sticking with us for the last 45 minutes. But that's really telling to me that across the 3 thematic priorities that GFP USA has, it was so evenly distributed. And I would love to see us creating programs together that address one or more of those thematic priorities, because there's so much interconnectedness with these issues. And if we're able to address the multiple facets of why we have issues of conflict and violence in our communities, I think will be more impactful. I mentioned in the ideal partnership about complementary strengths and value add. I think it's great if we can build programs where maybe GFP's specialty is this peace building or violence prevention or bridge building element, but maybe our partner is really great at doing something else, and we're able to come together and to leverage those strengths with our partners and to work on multiple thematic areas simultaneously.
Great, thank you, Lindsay. And I do have 2 more questions. If any of our guests today have any more questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll make sure that they get answered. Or if you prefer, you can use the raise your hand feature and you can ask the question directly to Lindsay or Sophia. So Lindsay, 2 more questions. 1, do you give grants? Does GFP give grants?
That's a yes and no question, I guess, a response. So we are a nonprofit like many of you. We are not a foundation or a grant maker. However, we do raise funding and try to subgrant where possible to partners in a very collaborative way. So we're not in the business of subgranting and somebody goes and does something totally on their own. The subgrant would be for a partnership for some sort of a program that we are collaborating on together with our partners. So right now, currently, we are not having funding that we are subgranting, but that can change at any given moment because we're always applying for new funding. And we're also really keen to partner with you all on proposals. Angela is our development person, and she and I work together on writing grants and talking with different funders. In the past in Chicago with Gary Comer Youth Center, we have co-applied for things. We've also gone and made the rounds to different funders, to their offices, to share what we're doing and try to get folks excited and involved in where we're going. For the community of practice, we're hoping to be able to provide some very modest mini grants to the partners. So say they want to organize some sort of an event or do something low budget to integrate Sport for Peace. We're really hoping to be able to offer that. But we'll have a lot more concrete information on that offering once we formally announce the community of practice.
Great, thank you. And then last question, are volunteers paid?
That's also a yes/no question. We think by their nature, volunteers are typically unpaid. There are folks who volunteer their time. However, we know that participation can be an equity and access issue, and we don't want to only work with folks that are able to do unpaid labor. We also really value the time and the effort that people are giving. So it really depends. It depends on the context, on what the norm is. What we have found with our partners in Chicago is that it is a norm, like I mentioned before, to provide youth stipends. So we have tried to build that into the budget and into the grants that we've been applying for together to provide a very modest stipend to the young people that are participating in the programs, not those that are participating in one-off activities, but if they're really committed for a full semester or several months to attending weekly sessions, they're getting a small stipend. And we've also been trying to find ways to just ensure that the volunteers are paid. Oftentimes our volunteers are volunteers with GFP, and that's a terminology that we use. We actually call them delegates or pioneers, but that's not so relevant for this conversation. But they're staff of our partner organizations. So say at Gary Comer Youth Center, those staff were paid by the Gary Comer Youth Center, and part of their time for their role was dedicated to the GFP projects.
Great, thank you. And just as I was saying, one last question, we got one last question from the audience. Does GFP USA work with LGBTQ populations as well?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jaden, for that question. We haven't had any programs that were explicitly working with LGBTQ populations, but would love to look more into the needs and the demand from those groups. So if that is a population that you work with, we would love to explore this with you. We do have a stance on diversity, equity, inclusion, and try to create a really welcoming space for anyone, regardless of age, gender, gender expression, religion, all of the different unique things that make up each of us. So I hope that answers your question.
And Tim asked, have you partnered with any professional sports teams to host clinics for youth?
As far as I know, we haven't partnered with professional sports teams, definitely not in the US. I don't think so internationally, but we do have a really great relationship with the International Olympic Committee and the Olympic movement. Generations for Peace actually started out as a project of the Jordan Olympic Committee, and we do have a history of partnering with games that are being held in different cities around the world and to organizing camps for young people from around the world to come to those locations and to do sport for peace. So had conversations in the past with the Los Angeles organizing committee. That's where the next Olympics are going to be, I believe, in 2028, but don't have anything concrete planned at this time. But I believe we've reached out to different sports teams in Chicago, and we may on this call have some representation from their community engagement folks. And I think that's a great way to generate some excitement in communities by bringing in some athletes and to incorporating in kind of the CSR community outreach angle of our professional sports teams.
Great, thank you, Lindsay. And if nobody else has any questions, or if you do, feel free to unmute yourself or use the raise hand feature to ask. Otherwise, I will pass off to Sophia for the next portion of our webinar.
Thank you, Angela. And thank you all for your questions. Thanks, Lindsay. That's a nice long stretch. Next slide. So now we are about to close, but before we do that, we would want to have a very short evaluation of the session. My colleague Ashraf will be launching the poll, and in the poll we're asking questions about the content of this webinar. If you could please rate it on a scale where 1 is poor and 10 is extremely good. And then we would also ask you to rate the delivery, how it was delivered, also on a scale of 1 to 10. We have on 1 to 5, sorry. And then the relevance of this webinar. So, and as Lindsay mentioned, even in the first poll and seeing that the thematic areas resonate, that's really interesting to see. So how relevant this webinar is to your work or has been to your work, how likely you are to submit an interest form. We're particularly interested in that. And if you have any other feedback, we would love to hear it. Eagerly actually waiting to hear it. This is an amazing space that we've had an opportunity to engage with you, and we're going to leave it on for just a couple more minutes maybe. Okay, we're seeing the numbers go up. This is great. We'll just give it 1 more minute. Okay. That's fine. Just take the lowest number as the lowest and the highest as the good one. Okay. 30 more seconds. Just looking at the numbers.
I think the poll has been closed, Sophia.
Has it? Ah, yes. Okay. All right. We appreciate all of your feedback. We're certainly going to take a look at it and take it into account. I'm just looking at the numbers in terms of interest in submitting an interest form, and it's looking good. It's looking quite interesting, and we're hoping we'll get to hear from you. I'm going to hand it back to Lindsay in a second. I just want to say a big thank you from Amman Jordan. Thank you to all our colleagues that were on the call, and over to you, Lindsay.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, everyone, for participating in today's showcase. I'd like to give a special shout out to our board members and our partners from Laureus who are with us today. We really hope to stay in touch with you. If we could go to the next slide, please, Angela. There's some information here of how to get in touch with us. We also have all of this on our website. Here's a QR code to our link tree, which has all of our links in one place. It's got our website. It has the job that we talked about, the program manager job. It has the partner interest form. It also has a link to our shop. I know you can't really see because of my name tag, but we have this wonderful new shirt that says Creating Shared Futures. That's our first campaign shirt that you can see there. So please check out our links. Give us a call, write to us on our emails. We hope to hear from all of you soon on this interest form. We hope you have a great rest of the day. And thank you so much for your participation. Bye for now.